Hi everyone, and welcome to IAMC 2018. I'm Sylvain Favre, and I work with Maxime Hacquard, Yvan Feusi, and Maxime Michel to the short movie opening of IAMC. So let's watch and talk after. So thanks for watching. So I made the level design, the storyboard, and I prepared all the streets elements, the smoke, the leaves simulations, the IVs, and the clothes on buildings. So let's start by the beginning, the storyboarding. So yes, the storyboarding. If I can have the first images. So the storyboarding is the first step for me because you just have to take 5 minutes to draw what you have in your head, and you can spread it with your mate and ask if they want some modification, if they like or not. Okay, so here I have just an example of the fifth scene of the movie. You have the high road here and the second road under it. And it's just an idea of the composition. Because when we talked together, we said it could be nice to have a girl on motorbike going through a destroyed city with alien plants. And I have some ideas. Maxime has his own ideas. Yvan his own ideas. And we have to make sure that we are agree of what to do. So here, it's the first step. 5 minutes, a drawing, and okay, I think it will be nice in 3D. So the second step is to create basic shapes in Cinema 4D to have to be sure that the compositing, that the scale of your scene is correct. Because in 3D you have to take care about the scale of your object. You have to be as the reality. Okay, if it's a good scale, the render will be better. So here you can see the basic shapes, so only the building, the road is just a plane for now, and the high road here and some wires. When you look at it, you can see that the size of the windows and the road is good, so you can go ahead and continue your work. The next step is to add a lot of details, okay? So here you can see some debris, you can see some vegetation, trees, vehicles, etc., etc. And I put camera to have an idea of what we can do with this scene. So the storyboard helped me to know where to put my objects. If I can see my cars, I delete it, or I put it in another place. Okay, and here's the final render. As you can see, it's pretty close to the design. Just a second example, in front of the tunnel, a simple draw, basic shapes, add more details, and the final render. Okay, so here I have 9 other examples, as you can see, and before and after with the creation. Okay, the level design was a huge part for me, because I create all the town, all the roads. So here you can see all the buildings, and the start of the story starts just here, and after she takes this road, come in the tunnel, and after you have here lots of alien plants, and the giant cocoon at the end is just here. So I created all the camera in one scene, and will be able to travel in this world to find other nice spots, and add more cameras, add more details. It was really exciting to do this part, because for me it was at this moment that the project takes lives. Okay, here it's just a close-up. So it's just a close-up here. It's just a little part of the level design. Okay, so everywhere in the level design you have cars, you have ivy, you have the road, panels, trashes, etc., etc. And you travel, okay, I find a cool way, a cool angle of view, and I will use it for the final renders. So when we have the final cameras, I'll be able to add more details again, to add more panels, more debris, and some leaves and smokes. Okay. The entire level design is very huge for the computer, so we have to optimize this scene. So for the camera just before, here, I delete all the elements that it's not visible for the camera. So as you can see, we have just a little part of the road, and I delete so many objects. But it's very, very important for the computer, for the texturing, for the renders, to have a little scene as possible. Okay, the building. So we use the pack, the Warzone pack from Kitbash 3D to have the basic shapes of our destroyed building. As you can see, we have the huge packs and with nice destructions and some debris here. And on those buildings, we had some alien plants everywhere, and some ivies too, and some clothes. Another angle of view with alien plants, with ivies. Okay. The next part was the street elements. We need to prepare a lot of street elements to put them in the streets and have nice details. So here is an example of the pack I prepared for the project. You can see here the pack for the military camp before the tunnel. You can see here the pack inside all buildings, because you have a sofa, you have beds inside buildings. You can see here a stop bus and rooftops, etc., etc. And with this pack, I can be able to put a lot of details on the streets. Okay. So in this image, you can see debris, trashes, cars, all the pack, the letterbox in the street. Okay, just more examples. Another render. Okay, to prepare the debris to put on the road with fracture Voronoi inside Cinema 4D. As you can see on the road, everywhere. Okay, I prepared some names in 3D shapes, and some other names are made with textures. I had to prepare too the cars, so I have basic models, and I use this kind of object to destroy them and deform them. Okay, and let's add some IVs for next level of details on them. And I create some smoke and leaf simulation for the project. So here you have the smoke, the renders, and with post-production you have some simulation behind your motorbike. Okay, it's the same for leaves. It's done for me. I will let Maxime Michel, to speak about music and sound design for this video. So thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, guys. My name is Maxime Michel. I'm a music composer and a sound designer. I'd like to thank those guys that let me talk a little bit about it for 5 minutes. I'm going to talk today about what I did, how I did it, and most importantly, why I did it. The why is probably the most important thing about music when it's on a video, because when you're making a video, you're creating your art, you're creating a story, and then you put you put music on it. Why do you put music on your video? Do you do it because it's convenient? Do you do it because everybody else does it? Or do you do it to tell something more about your thing, about what you're creating? The thing is, when you put music on a video, it talks at a completely different level to the viewer. It talks about the story. It tells more about the story than the video itself. It's telling another story that adds to the video, and it talks to the brain at a completely different levels. When you watch a movie, you listen to dialogues, you understand the thing, you process the story. But when you listen to music, it's unconscious in a way. It goes directly to emotions, and that's why. That's what is it about, the emotion. So when I made this thing, I asked myself, okay, what's the story? What is it about? It's mostly about courage, about finding your path, and never give up about your art and what you're creating, and trying to find a way to prosper in your art. So I tried to put all those emotions in the same video, and it has to follow through and evolve with the video. It has to evolve. So my advice when you choose music for your creation is that you think first about what emotion you want to transfer, you want to show, and you want people to feel, and yourself to feel. Is it courage? Is it love? Is it fear? Is it hate? So first of all, I would I would myself, if I would create a video like that with pink aliens and road and a motorcycle. So what is it talking about? I would create just a small list of things, of emotions, and then you can talk with the composer or sound designer you're working with to get more precise about it, to find the right instruments, the right melody, the right shape of the music. Is it going slowly and then faster, or the opposite? Is it strong? Is it soft? How do you want it to feel? So yeah, I would just put a list of emotions, and then you can talk about I want a piano, a violin, or anything else. So that's basically what I did for this. Well, I could do, those guys are cool. I could do anything I wanted. So that's what I did. And a bit about sound design. Mostly it's about making the video breathe. It's about making it live. It's not an object anymore. It's a story. There are people. There's a city. It has to live. So we create ambiences. We create, you use winds, different winds when it's in the desert. What's happening? The main part was the motorcycle. So I asked Yvan, I guess, the model of the motorcycle to find it online, and then I can do my thing. And also you have to find sounds, which is real sound design, is finding the right sound for something that doesn't exist, like the aliens. How do you go outside and record an alien sound? You can't. So you have to find different small sounds, put them together, and then it kind of feels like an alien. It kind of sounds, it has the idea of what you would think an alien would sound, because a motorcycle is a motorcycle. You just have to find the right sound. But what about something that doesn't exist? A spaceship, just being in space, aliens, all those things you have to create and merge different sounds together. So I hope that gave you a little bit more information about my work, and thank you guys.
Okay, hello, my name is Yvan Feusi, and I'm 3D artist. I worked on this project and was responsible mostly for the technical part. Also, I made all the materials, lighting and rendering, and I animated the girl on the bike. So let's start with showing you like this Kitbash 3D objects that already have this tissue on it and the IVs. So I can do this. So this is without the materials. This is with. And on this project, there is something like 350 materials. All of them are not simple materials, but smart materials. So they are all procedural. There is no need of UV, because honestly, I hate UVs. And I found ways to texture them procedurally. So in this example, I used ambient occlusion inside my node editor to get a selection of the cavities of the building, on which I will put some moss. I will also distribute the graffitis and some more destructed concrete on top of a more simple one. So all together gives this kind of result. And where the ivy is growing, also the moss is behind. All of this is procedural using the nodal editor. So I use also gradients, noise, dirt, and some OSL projection that allows me to get a different result of the same basic textures. So here is an example of the alien plants, for which I use some guts, I guess of a goat. It was very disgusting. And with the subsurface scattering, it gives some skin look and feel. So that's some example about this. The thing also is that the challenge on this project was to be able to use all these assets. There is hundreds of unique elements, and combine it together makes some dozen thousands objects. And with all these materials, it's very complex to make it possible to render quickly. And that was the objective, to get less than 3 minutes per frame. And when I was below that, I was pretty happy. And the idea is that when you have twice the same building, the idea is to actually be able to make it look different. So there is some random colors involved in the process. So if I take a building and I duplicate another time, even if this is the same material, in the end it will look completely different. So let's see. This is the cars. So this is the cars destructed by Sylvain and with the IVs on top. And I was able to texture all of them without any UV, and I could texture them all at once. So it saved a lot of time. And if I show you a bit how I did it, so there is no painting involved in the process. This is 100% procedural. So on something like that, this is the ambient occlusion, which shows the shape of the model, and with some normal maps on top of it. And there, this is the result of, this is the final result. But if we take a look at how the material is distributed on the model, the moss is growing from the bottom, never from the top, and actually also is distributed into the cavities of the car. On top of that, we've got, so the white material is the base metal, so I could combine different metal as a base, so I have more than 10. The red parts are actually the rust, which is shared along all the cars. and the blue is the sand that always fall from the sky because of the wind and this kind of natural effects. And if I turn my car now in any sense, the sand will always fall from the top. So it's a very great thing because I save a lot of time. And the yellow on the windows are the broken parts. So that gives you a bit an idea how I was able to texture that using triplanar projection, dirt, gradients, noise, everything procedural. And here is another example of a truck. And it's also giving a different look. But all of that involves no painting and no UV. So another example of the van. Also giving a different result with the sand falling from the top. And here we go with the vegetation. So for the vegetation, I use some Megascan textures. Especially, I was interested into the Atlas. The Atlas is a combination of a flat texture. You have maybe like 20, 40 on the same file, and then you're using you're actually moving on the axis of a plane, and you've got just one little grass patch, for example, that you can that I use also then Forester. Forester is a plugin that allows me to make the grass move. And the goal here was to avoid using any 3D grass. Otherwise, it will become very crazy in terms of render time, because all combined it's easy to make a little patch of forest, but once you combine all of that together, it becomes pretty crazy. So also for the bark of the tree, there is some displacement, and the way the moss is growing on the tree is also using procedural method, where I put a gradient in the wall space, and I can define the maximum altitude of this moss. And this is broken down also with noises to make it look more natural. But it's allowing me to create, I could make 20 trees, and they will all look different this way. So this scene is nothing else than just a preview scene for me to work, because I like to cut down every little component and to work on them, because it's way more easy like this than now. If I add 20 more buildings next to it, it will be pretty much overwhelming. So here is different example. I also have the moss on the ground, which I painted then on top of the vehicles, and it makes them look a bit more old. So another example. And of course, with the depth of field, you actually never see like the little issues of the 2D maps. Here is for the bike. So the bike also is textures procedurally, except for the girls, which has UVs. But if you can see, the sand is going into the cavities, falling down, etc. And another view. So I try to make the material looks realistic, and they share properties together, so it's still light for the scene to render. The girl without the bike, the girl without the materials. And here we go for the names. So the names were provided this way. It's pure geometry, and some of them have just flat surfaces, because the goal was to bring like a sort of advertising, a sort of poster look. And here is a clay render, and there is the result with the actual render and the textures. So now I will talk quickly about the road. So the road, since it has turn, needs to have a UV, and so the texture can follow this UV. And I try to make the size of my texture to be large enough so you don't see so much repetition. And when you see some of them, we can actually put a car or a patch of grass. And let's see more in detail. So this is the preview of the 8 map. So this is the displacement map that I made in Photoshop. And the idea is that I can distribute different materials into each of these colors, which is just a preview for you to understand the different altitude of this road. So in the cavities of the road, I will have more sand, more dirt, more little gravels. And on top of it, it's more like an asphalt with the lines of the road. And also we've got some unique elements like this red walking line, which is actually unique and only seen once and not repeated. So also I had some text on the road. So it gives some idea. Here is a different view of it. The model, we try to make it as low poly as possible, because with that much number of assets and textures, the idea is that you will quickly make the computer go crazy. So the details are bring into the scene via materials, and the materials are all procedural. And this is an example of Uber materials, which includes a lot of properties. So that's my road, actually. It looks like that. For some, might look boring and scary. For me, it's like pretty fascinating, honestly. It's all about the logic, and this is where you can also mix logic and creativity. This is how looks the total materials. So there is about 350, and for managing this kind of scene, I actually created a Python script that allows me to switch the resolution of the maps and go from 1K to 8K, from 8K to 2K. And so the goal was that when a material was close to the camera, I was cranking up the resolution of it, and when it was far, I was using the minimum resolution for it. So, because when you add up, imagine you have all of that in 8K resolution, you can forget about rendering it, or it will take a life. So that's about it. Another view of the roads, close up on the concrete, and also the same principle apply here. The moss is falling, the dirt is on the edges, there is also some sand, and there is also some unique elements like the names, which are painting on top, and they are placed in the scene procedurally. So the advantage of this technique is that if you had to paint one road, and then you've got another road to paint, you need to restart from scratch. Well, when you create a procedural material, you can create endless size for your road, kilometers and kilometers. So then we go on the street elements. So this pack involve like hundreds of objects, which most of them had to be textures uniquely, because often they are very different objects, and what works for one doesn't work for the other. That's without the maths, with the maths. And for this whole thing, I tried to organize it as a shape of library. So we had a library for the buildings, a library for the street elements, a library for the names and the vegetation, all of that into Xref, which is different Cinema 4D files that you can import into a Cinema 4D file. It's like a linked dynamic object in Photoshop, for example. So you can import a file into another. And so the beauty of that is that when we use Dropbox, we were able that one person works on modeling, one person works on texturing, and another person can actually place these objects that are not even final yet into the scene. And then when we update this Xref, we switch from the low poly to the high poly with materials and with animation. The object is already in place and just have to be updated in a click. So that allows us for a good collaboration and make things light as possible. So anyway, I'm not going to talk about this so much because it's pretty technical, and I think people are going to sleep for this. But this is the concept of this Xref, and in a scene you often have unique objects, a character, a landmark, something that appear once. But when you are doing animation, you often have a lot of sequence. So in this case, we have 30. So you don't want to duplicate your object into 30 sequence. And when you update it, you change it once, you need to change it all the time. You lose a lot of time. So it's why we use Xref. And so unique objects, instancing object, vegetation, street element, etc. Very quickly, and for people who want to know more, you can contact me online or you can contact me here. And I developed 3 methods. The first is this idea that every object is actually a separate file, but it's very complicated to manage because you end up with a lot of duplicate maths, because maybe a tree shares the same property than some grass, etc. The method number 2 is that is the one actually we use the most, where your unique objects are into one files with their maths, and all the objects that are duplicated in the scene, instanced, are actually into a sort of pack, a library that represents their function. So all the vegetation come together, all the street elements are together, and they already include the materials. And the last method is actually that you do all of that, but you do no material. And then on the second layer, it's imported in another file, and there you actually texture it. And this way, you actually have the most flexible way to do it, because one can continue modeling his object when the other guy is actually one model it, one texture it, one put the elements on the scene, and there is no conflict, there is no duplicated maps, and that's the best method. Anyway, as I said, it's a bit technical, so we can get back on it another time. Thank you very much.
So we will talk about 4 things that I did on this project. We will talk about the camera work, the post-production, the creation of several elements, and about the community we manage together. So I will start with the camera work. So Sylvain made the level design, and Yvan made the texturing and lighting. The goal was to find cool places and cool angle. So here you have a direct view of where's the camera in this building, and you have a view of the level design. So you see that all the extra buildings that are not in the view are deleted. And you have here the final composition. So the goal was to find cool angle with a nice foreground, a nice background. And then the work was pretty fun because it's just playing with your virtual camera, trying to find good angles. Here's another example. You have the location in the level design. So right here in the military camp, you have here the scene setup, and the camera is just right there. So another composition with a nice car in foreground with some depth of field. And you have here the bike going from the right to the left in this black and obscure tunnel. And then the process was fun because after finding the cool angle, my mate Sylvain can move some element to have a better composition. So it was the process of camera work. Here's the last example of finding a cool composition by accident. I was actually playing in the level design by virtual camera, and I went into building and find this composition nice. You have like a voyeur view, so like if someone is watching from the inside of the building, like a strange entity. Nice blurred foreground, obscure part, and the motorbike going into some strange places. Here's a view of the level design in the top view, and another top view. So everything was designed, and the goal was just to find cool angle and set all the scene. Here's a preview from the software and the final render, so you have an idea of how it looks like before it was rendered. Everything was rendered like this for the animatic. So the goal was to give quickly to my partners an idea of what the rhythm, the montage, and the film will looks like, because it's a film. It's really important to have an idea of and an animatic, so we can know how many times a shot will have. And so you have here the camera moving behind the bike, and you have here the bike. So another example with the top view and the view inside the software. And you have here all the paths inside the software. So I set all the paths of the bike in the level design, and Yvan do the final animation, like I forgot the English word, sorry. I will show you how you can play with 3D cameras in 3D software. So they are unique objects. So you have like a virtual camera, and you can set up the depth of field, set up your position. And what I like in 3D software is that you are not limited, so you can have views, helicopter views, and fun stuff. So just your imagination. I will show you the 3 techniques used for animation, camera animation. So the first technique was the the camera morph. The idea is that you set 3 or 2 or any cameras and still cameras, and then with the camera morph tag, you will be able to have movement between each shot. So you just need to find 2 or more cool angles, and it creates an interpolation between it. You have maybe less control, but you quickly have a nice result. You have also built-in tool in Cinema 4D, like this crane. I used it for some shots. So you have some idea of cinematographic shot that you can do with few controllers. You have also a virtual cameraman. It have some banking and shaking in his hand. With adding a little bit of imperfection in your renders will add to push it to the next level, your animation, because it will look a bit more realistic. The latest camera technique used was to set a path with a spline and group an object and a camera into a null. So we have my object, I set a path, I have my camera and my object into the same group object, and this group object is aligned along the path. So everything follows, and the latest thing was to add a vibrate tag that add randomness into my camera. So when you have the follow, like the bike follow, you have some randomness behind it. So here's the 3 main techniques used. I will talk a bit about post-production. So the post-production was made into After Effects. You have here an example of how things are organized. So here you have several composition, and in each composition I have effects, and on the top I have all my general effects like color correction, aspect ratio, shaking. Here, things are organized into folders. I recommend the script Motion 2 that help you to organize your project, change the color easily of the composition, and set folders. Motion 2, nice script. So here is a quick example of the post-production. It was really, it was not easy on this project. So a few basic correction, like correcting the highlights to have the attention and the focus on the name, color grading of the sky, some Z-depth, and to add like fog, lens deformation, light, and a few particles, just to add a bit more depth in your universe. To do the compositing, Yvan used the AXR format. That's a file that will contain all the render paces that you want. So you can have in one file the ambient occlusion, the Z-depth, the BOT, the light passes, and it's 22-bit linear workflow. So I can set my black and my white point in post to control my Z-depth, and it allows me to do more things like adding some fog in post. So this is a really nice format, OpenAXR. Here is a few other things that I did in post-production. This is really small, but on the 3 first shots, you have heat distortion, like in all the hot place, like desert or behind the bike, you have deformation based on a noise with the plugin heat distortion from Video Copilot. And I also added a few shaking on key moments, like when the bike is going under, to add more dynamism. I use the plugin Sapphire Shake that will allow you to add post shaking with a few keyframes. It's nice to just move an object or a wall composition with a keyframe. Here is the part of element creation. I've worked on all the tags and 2D names. The idea was to add, again, more depth to the universe, but thinking about how the world is with destruction and alien plants. So many kids drawings, many quotes and stuff. Like here you can see destructed gas mask, some quotes like liars. I was directly inspired. Oh, I think I have a bug. It worked yesterday. Maybe I will try to relaunch it. Okay, today it's not working. I will try with VLC. Thank you, Windows. Okay, I worked on the several tags with kid drawings, some cuts made by hand in Photoshop. Great skills, and I was inspired by the Cornelius Damrich work. As you see, many tags are by the game The Division. I think it's cool to have a few elements like this to give the viewer an idea of what's the mood in this universe. I will also show you the workflow of Alien Plants creation. We worked together with Sylvain to try to find shape. Here is the final shape that we have keep. So I used generative spline with the plugin Ivy Grower to set the basic spline. I use built-in tools inside Cinema 4D to set the basic shape, and then I go inside ZBrush and use like decimation on Z-remesher to keep the amount of poly as low as possible, because I even need to manage all the geometry, and the more you have geometry, the more your project is complicated to manage. Last thing that I will talk about to end this short talk was our community. With Yvan and Sylvain, we created a community called Motion Designer Community. Behind this this talk, you need to know that YAMAG supports our events. So it was after a talk with Patrice that we decided to work on this opening. With our community, we are making a few things if you want to join it. We have inspiration page, we have Facebook groups, we have Discord, all based on animation, creativity, and it can help you even if you're just doing design or frames or concepts to find inspiration and 3D techniques. We also have a Discord if you want to join. And the most important thing, we try to be like a real community doing physical events, meet as possible people, and keep things nice to grow together, because we find this really important to have the possibility to meet new artists, to do events, and progress together, because that's the other that will give you feedbacks and tips to improve your workflow and progress. So it's really important for us to always stay connected with other artists. So it was the end of my talk. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to watch it again, as we have 2 minutes, I can set it again. Okay, as you see, Windows is really nice this morning. It's just for me. So for the people that just come, it was the trailer that we made with Yvan and Sylvain. Sylvain on level design, elements, and and Yvan of lighting, rendering, technical parts, and myself on camera work, creation of 2D elements, and also montage, animating, compositing. So I hope you guys enjoy this and find nice techniques that you can use in your own workflow. If you have questions, we are all the day at this table, so you can come, maybe test with us a few 3D techniques, and feel free to ask anything. We are here the whole day.